Have you ever felt like your cat is watching you with an intensity that goes beyond mere curiosity? Or perhaps you've had the eerie sensation that your cat sees something you can't, something invisible, mysterious, maybe even otherworldly. Carl Jung, one of the most enigmatic minds of the 20th century, once warned about a hidden detail in cats, something that few have truly grasped, even today. What Jung had to say about these animals could radically change not only the way you see them, but also the way you understand the invisible forces shaping your psyche and the vast, often misunderstood realm of the collective unconscious. And yes, what you're about to discover may leave you deeply surprised. I invite you to stay with me until the very end, because I'm going to reveal 3 hidden symbols that, according to Jung, suggest that a cat is far more than a simple pet. Instead, it may be a living manifestation of something profoundly spiritual and psychological in your life. The story begins with one of Jung's young patients, who came to him with a disturbing confession. For several weeks, he had been dreaming every single night of a black cat that stared at him from a corner of his room. The cat never moved. It didn't attack or speak. It simply gazed at him night after night, as if it knew something the young man himself could not comprehend. Most people might dismiss such a dream as a strange coincidence or a meaningless product of imagination. But Jung did no such thing. Instead, he fell silent, thoughtful, and then replied with a sentence the young man would never forget. Animals in dreams, especially cats, are living symbols. They represent what we have repressed. They embody our shadow. To Jung, nothing in the unconscious was meaningless. Every image, every creature that surfaced in our dreams held a message, a purpose. And when a symbol, as powerful as the cat appeared, it was not by chance. It was the unconscious trying to speak, trying to warn, to illuminate something buried beneath layers of reason, trauma, or denied emotion. In Jungian analytical psychology, this is known as the shadow, the darker aspect of our personality that we deny, avoid, or simply refuse to confront. According to Jung, cats, whether in dreams or in real life, often emerge as messengers of this shadow. And here's where the story takes an even more curious turn. After that therapy session, not only did the patient stop dreaming about the cat, but he began to notice real cats appearing all around him, in the street, on rooftops, in his yard, outside his window. Jung explained that this was no coincidence. When the unconscious isn't acknowledged internally, it begins to express itself externally. And the cat, with its timeless symbolism of mystery, stealth, independence, and its innate connection to the unseen, becomes one of the most powerful mediums through which the unconscious communicates. From that case onward, Jung began to develop an even deeper vision of the cat's symbolism in human life. He came to believe that cats weren't merely domestic animals. They were archetypal representations of the unconscious, a kind of silent presence that, like dreams, confronted us with what we refuse to see. Perhaps if a cat has ever stared at you without any apparent reason, what you were truly experiencing wasn't just its gaze, but your own, reflected back at you through one of the oldest and most silent mirrors of all, your shadow. To Carl Jung, cats were never simply decorative creatures or household companions. In his profoundly symbolic view of the world, they were living manifestations of ancient archetypes, timeless figures that dwell in the deepest layers of the collective unconscious. From the rituals of ancient civilizations to the dreams of his modern patients, the cat appeared again and again, not just as an animal, but as a loaded symbol, a silent messenger echoing through centuries. Jung understood that archetypes, these primordial images we all share as a species, manifest themselves in universal symbols, and among them, the cat held a particularly enigmatic place. In ancient Egypt, it was worshipped as a spiritual guardian and a sacred being. During the Middle Ages, it was feared, associated with witches and the occult. In Eastern cultures, it was seen as a protector of the soul and the home. According to Jung, these cultural variations weren't random. They were reflections of a deeper psychological truth. The cat represents what cannot be tamed, the mysterious force that watches from the shadows, the parts of reality that lie beyond our conscious control. Jung believed that whenever an archetype appears in our lives, whether through a dream, a synchronicity, or even the sudden and inexplicable presence of an animal, we must pay attention. The cat, in that sense, is not just a creature. It is a symbol pointing toward a part of ourselves that longs to be integrated. It might be our forgotten intuition, the sensitivity we've been taught to repress, or the sacred connection to mystery that modern life has taught us to ignore. In his writings, Jung once said, "Where there is a cat, there is a threshold between worlds, between what we can see and what lies hidden, between the conscious mind and the unconscious." The cat does not enter your life by accident, he warned. It arrives as a messenger of the unsaid, a guardian of the unresolved. Its unpredictable behavior, its ability to see in darkness, its apparent indifference, yet undeniable presence. These are all traits that mirror the complexity of the human soul. This is precisely why Jung was never surprised when, during times of existential crisis or profound inner transformation, people began noticing cats more frequently in their lives. For him, this was a clear sign that the unconscious had begun to speak, not with words, not with logic, but with symbols. And few symbols, Jung said, are as powerful, as ancient, and as revealing as the gaze of a cat, watching you silently as if it knows something you have yet to remember. Carl Jung was far from an ordinary scientist. While many in his field focused solely on what could be measured, dissected, and proven, Jung ventured into the deepest corners of the human soul. For him, the soul held as many mysteries as the vast universe, and within those mysteries were symbols, living, breathing keys to understanding the psyche. These symbols appeared in dreams, in synchronous moments, and even in everyday interactions with animals. Among those animals, cats held a particularly intriguing significance. Throughout his life, Jung shared haunting and profound reflections on these enigmatic creatures. Through decades of study, clinical observation, and symbolic interpretation, Jung arrived at three key revelations about cats, insights that would not only challenge conventional thinking, but also transform the way many perceive these animals. His first revelation was that the cat embodies what he called the active shadow. This is the side of ourselves we tend to suppress or deny, the fears we try to forget, the guilt we bury deep within, the traumas that haunt us silently, and the forbidden desires we are too ashamed to confront. According to Jung, cats do not merely represent this shadow in our dreams. They can actually mirror it in real life. He noted that a cat's presence during emotionally turbulent moments might not be coincidental at all. When a cat enters a room during times of emotional chaos or behaves strangely in specific areas of a home, it may be signaling something deeper, an unacknowledged part of our psyche that is surfacing and asking to be recognized. There are countless accounts from patients who reported that their cat would approach them only during moments of severe anxiety or sadness, almost as if drawn by an invisible thread. Jung interpreted these moments not as random, but as symbolic expressions of the shadow seeking integration. The cat, unlike the human, does not run from the darkness. It stares straight into it, fearless and unwavering. Jung's second revelation about cats is equally fascinating. He believed that the cat functions as a living channel of deep intuition. While humans are often lost in thought, buried under responsibilities, and governed by the ego, cats remain tethered to something far more primal and essential. Jung described animals, especially cats, as beings who exist in a state of purer consciousness because they are not ruled by the fragmented self-image that dominates human awareness. And in the case of cats, this pure consciousness is especially sensitive, almost otherworldly. When a cat silently enters a room and fixates on an empty corner, Jung suggested it wasn't staring into nothingness. Rather, it was perceiving something beyond the grasp of rational understanding, something invisible to the human eye, but present on a symbolic or energetic level. For him, cats were like spiritual antennas. They detect subtle shifts in the environment, emotional undercurrents, and symbolic presences that elude our ordinary senses. Their reactions come from a place beyond logic, deeply instinctive, rooted in the collective unconscious. In essence, when your cat behaves strangely, don't dismiss it. It may be sensing something your conscious mind has not yet caught up with. The third revelation, the most extraordinary and spiritually resonant of all, pertained to something Jung could only partially explain with science, but deeply understood through symbolism. The cat's purr as a frequency of psychic healing. To Jung, the act of a cat purring wasn't just a comforting sound or a sign of contentment. It was something far more profound. He believed that this subtle vibration carried a symbolic resonance capable of influencing the emotional and psychological state of a human being. In his view, the purr operated like a subtle, energetic therapy, an ancient, unspoken language of healing. It could quiet the mind, soothe the nerves, and even help the soul reintegrate lost fragments of itself. Just as music or chanting can lead to trance states and inner peace, so too could the humble purr of a cat guide a person into deeper psychological balance. The rhythm of the purr, he thought, aligned with natural frequencies in the human body and psyche, restoring inner harmony in ways modern science was only beginning to grasp. To Jung, cats were not simply animals. They were guardians of the unconscious, silent observers of our emotional landscapes, and messengers of hidden truths. They walked the boundary between the seen and the unseen, between the rational and the mysterious. And in doing so, they offered us mirrors, keys, and even healing, if we were willing to pay attention. Jung believed that certain soft, repetitive sounds could act as bridges between the mind and the soul. Tibetan chants, shamanic drumming, and even mantras, in his view, were not just auditory experiences, but profound vibrations capable of restoring inner balance. To him, sound wasn't merely a physical phenomenon, it was a carrier of energy that reached deeper layers of consciousness. Within this context, the purring of a cat, a steady hum emitted when it's relaxed, at peace, or near someone in pain, was far more than a sign of contentment. It was a healing frequency, a sacred resonance that could subtly harmonize the emotional field of anyone who listened with openness and sensitivity. Today, science is beginning to explore these ancient intuitions, discovering that the frequency of a cat's purr typically ranges between 25 and 150 hertz, a range that has been shown to aid in the regeneration of tissues and the reduction of stress. This modern confirmation of ancient knowledge didn't surprise Jung. Long before these discoveries, he had already sensed the spiritual essence behind this phenomenon. For him, the purr was like a silent prayer, a vibration that originated not from the cat's body, but from its soul. It was a frequency that bypassed logic and reason, speaking directly to the hidden layers of the psyche, to the very depths of the human spirit. Carl Jung saw three fundamental revelations embodied in cats. They served as shadows, intuitive channels, and spiritual healers. Their presence was not something casual or mundane, but a meaningful encounter with something greater. For him, every cat that entered a person's life was a living symbol of the mystery that resides within each of us, a silent mirror that guides, confronts, and sometimes even heals us. Their appearance, far from being mere coincidence, was a form of dialogue between the visible and the invisible, a quiet invitation to self-exploration and introspection. Perhaps this is why, when a cat stares at you from a dark corner in complete silence, it is not looking at what's in front of you. It is seeing something within you. For Carl Jung, knowledge was meaningless unless it could be lived. Symbolic revelations, no matter how profound, had to be integrated into daily life. And animals, especially cats, were not exceptions to this principle. In Jung's vision, the symbolic dimension of life was not just a philosophical idea, but a path to personal transformation. Everything had meaning, and every encounter had the potential to reveal hidden aspects of the soul. If these feline creatures truly embody aspects of our shadow, channel deep intuitions, and emit healing vibrations, then their presence in our homes should not be taken lightly. Jung didn't offer rigid rules, but gentle invitations, ways of seeing more consciously, of interacting with the symbolic richness of life through our relationship with cats. He believed that by paying attention, by engaging with these moments with awareness, we could deepen our connection to the unconscious and accelerate the process of individuation, the journey of becoming whole. One of Jung's first practical suggestions was to observe the cat as a living projection of the unconscious. In analytical psychology, everything that surrounds us can mirror internal processes. Just as dreams reveal what we feel without realizing it, the behavior of a cat can be a symbolic expression of our emotional, mental, or spiritual state. If your cat consistently avoids certain rooms in your home, shows sudden discomfort in specific moments, or chooses to sit quietly beside you during times of crisis, it might be sensing energies or emotional undercurrents that you haven't yet acknowledged. Jung emphasized that such observations were not meant to provoke paranoia, but rather awareness. The cat becomes a subtle mirror of the unseen, a barometer of the invisible. It reflects what lies beneath the surface, what we often avoid confronting in ourselves. A second practical recommendation was to keep a symbolic behavior journal. Just as Jung encouraged his patients to maintain dream journals, he also saw the value in recording coincidences, sensations, and patterns associated with animals, particularly during pivotal moments in life. If you are going through a period of grief, anxiety, or personal transformation, and your cat begins to behave unusually, this may hold significant meaning. Jung advised writing down these occurrences, correlating them with internal emotions or major life decisions. Over time, such records may reveal patterns and connections between the outer world and your inner landscape, patterns that were previously invisible, but now illuminate the intricate dialogue between soul and experience. The third, and perhaps most important suggestion from Jung, was to treat the cat with symbolic respect, not merely as a pet, but as a companion on the journey toward individuation. Individuation for Jung was the path to becoming a complete self, the integration of all parts of the psyche, including those that we ignore or suppress. If the cat represents our shadow, our intuition, and our healing capacity, then honoring its presence is also a way of honoring those hidden parts of ourselves. To caress a cat with awareness, to allow it to approach when it feels the need, to respect its choice of where to sleep, and to express gratitude for its companionship during times of sadness. All these simple actions can become spiritual rituals, acts of inner integration. Jung believed that honoring symbols activates their transformative power. When we dismiss the symbolic, we reduce it to triviality and close ourselves off to its messages. But when we approach it with reverence, we awaken its capacity to teach and to heal. This is why Jung advised seeing the cat not as just another animal sharing our home, but as a figure charged with archetypal wisdom, a silent guardian who, if treated with respect, can reveal far more than we might expect. And perhaps, after absorbing all this, you may begin to look at your cat differently, because according to Jung, nothing that appears external is truly external. Everything is a reflection of the soul, reaching out to remind you of who you are, even if that reminder comes through the mysterious gaze of a feline silently watching you from the shadows. For Carl Jung, nothing that happens in our lives is ever truly random. What many people call coincidence, he understood as synchronicity, meaningful events that occur precisely when the soul is ready to perceive them. These are not accidents. They are signs. They are mirrors that reflect something deep within us, waiting to be acknowledged. From this perspective, the arrival of a cat in your life can be far more profound than just acquiring a pet. It can be a message, a living symbol placed before you by life, or perhaps by your own unconscious, to awaken something within you, to shift your perception, to encourage you to look inward with new eyes. Carl Jung believed that everything around us is a projection of our inner world, a reflection of aspects of our psyche that we may not be consciously aware of. And so, if a cat shows up during a period of emotional turmoil, if it chooses to stay by your side during long, silent nights, if it gazes at you with a knowing stare, as if it understands exactly what you're going through, don't ignore it. Don't brush it off as just another animal. It might not be that simple. It might be the embodiment of a mystery, a silent messenger from the depths of your own being. Just like our dreams communicate through symbols, cats can become living metaphors, creatures whose penetrating gaze, mysterious independence, and heightened sensitivity speak volumes about the parts of ourselves we've neglected or hidden away. They confront us with truths we've refused to see, our repressed emotions, our unresolved fears, our intuitive and sacred essence that we've tried to silence in the noise of modern life. And then something happens. When you truly stop to observe your cat, not just casually, but with deep presence, something inside you begins to shift. You start to realize that its silences aren't empty. They're full of meaning, that its movements aren't random. They're purposeful, that its presence isn't merely comforting, it's symbolic. You begin to understand that your cat might be guiding you, protecting you, even healing wounds within you that you didn't know existed. Because sometimes, as Jung once said, the soul doesn't shout, it whispers. And one of those whispers may come in the soft, silent form of a cat who crosses your path not by chance, but by cosmic design. If you already have a cat, this is your invitation to look at it differently. Ask yourself, what part of me is this creature reflecting? What energy is it picking up? What message is it trying to deliver? Because it might be more than just a companion. It might be a guide, a sentinel, a healer wrapped in fur. And if you don't have a cat, but something about this message resonates deeply within you, maybe it's only a matter of time before this living symbol steps into your life. Because as Jung said, when the soul needs something, the universe conspires to reveal it, even if it comes in the form of a feline who wasn't invited, yet arrives at precisely the right moment. Have you ever had an unexplainable experience with a cat? Have you ever felt that your pet knew more about you than you did about yourself? Share it. Your story might be the sign someone else is waiting for. In a world that grows louder and more disconnected every day, there are still sacred symbols that continue to gently knock at our door. And sometimes those symbols have whiskers, walk silently, and gaze at us with the timeless wisdom of a being who's been here long before we ever were. Thank you for joining me in this deep reflection, inspired by the psychology of Carl Jung. And remember, nothing external is truly external. Everything that reaches you is trying to reveal something that already lives within you. If this message spoke to your soul, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any new content.